Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to USC's Galen Center for the League of Legends World Playoffs. The semifinals about to begin. I'm Rivington Bislin III. With me, as always, is David Freak Turley. But Freak, before we dive into all the grandness that is the semifinals matchup, let's go over a little bit about that last quarterfinal match.
So that quarterfinal match was quite a few days in the making, of course, as we all know. And these games did go back and forth. But in the end, it was CLG really playing their game.
Yes.
They picked that late game composition. Nunu Kog'Maw, so much damage with those two. Karthus as well. Froggen having a great game. And that even though there was a nice frontline dive there from Team WE, they had Olaf. He had a pretty decent lane, had a bunch of gold, Warmogs, Randuins.
Right.
A blood-boiled Kog'Maw will melt anyone he pleases. And ultimately, he was just so beefy. He dealt so much damage. And really, I think Crepo, Yellow Pete, they had such a good lane overall that, Kog'Maw, despite having a bit of a weak laning phase, he's there for the late game, had such a good start overall, played the mid game so well that once it became 30 minutes or so, CLG just had the team fight presence.
Freak, and we said it before, it was actually a key to victory for them. Don't focus Wicked top. He just bounces back all the time. And with such an awesome team, coming from WE in the beginning, the Leona, the Maokai, and the Corki, all very safe at early tower dives. They were able to snowball in that top lane. What prevented them from keeping the snowball in the game?
Well, basically, it was the kind of thing where once they set up, back at the 2-on-2 lane down there, and they had, Corki and Leona up there against Kog'Maw, etc. They set up a lot of really good moves, and that is where they want to gank, right? That snowbally team, it worked very, very well. They got those ganks going. They played that early mid game exactly perfect. But it's just what happens when you play against CLGE. Jat was saying that WE needs to make some pushes. They need to keep pushing forward. They need to press the advantage because there's always going to be that tick-tock in the back of their mind saying, it's Nunu Kog'Maw, it's Nunu Kog'Maw, it's Nunu Kog'Maw. If they can't keep that pressure going, it's still going to be scary. And in the end, Nunu Kog'Maw, they got the items. It eventually became late enough that CLG made enough moves picking up dragons based on tower dives. They made enough moves picking up just enough turrets, and they went equal enough in those fights. Those really, really amazing Requiems coming out from Froggen allowed him to kind of carry the mid game. And then finally, Infinity Edge Phantom Dancer was done. So, they just held on long enough. They held on without losing too much of their base long enough that items were eventually bought.
Well, we have some opinions, but we also have somebody here who has some other opinions, maybe some professional ones as well. Guys, joining us today here at the Championship Playoffs is going to be Dan Din to talk about the previous matchup a little bit. Dan, how you doing?
I'm doing really good, guys. And really, I totally agree with you guys. It's just a matter of early game versus late game. You look at World Elite, they have very durable, very tanky, lots of damage, so they can just go in there and kill somebody and back out. And at the same time, COG has experienced this. They've experienced it for 8 hours the other day. And they actually built their comp around it. If you look at Kog'Maw, he's got that cleanse so he can escape. And he also got that Karthus, because with the expectation that World Elite's going to be diving all day, having that extra damage from Karthus can really turn the battle around. And so I thought that, COG coming into this, expected this. They expected to lose the early game, and really they're just clawing and hanging on, waiting for that mid game, waiting for that late game, and just powering through it. Because with the type of team comp that COG has, they're very susceptible to getting dived early, but the moment that 30 minutes hit, they have the Karthus for a long-range nuke. They have the Jace for the long-range nuke. And if they dive in, you have all that damage. It comes to a point where Olaf just can't run in anymore. He's going to get shredded. He's going to die. The Blood Bowl is just too much. And one key factor that I felt that just played against World Elite is there was no Frozen Heart at any point.
Yeah, that Frozen Heart really massive because it's an area of effect slow, right? It's affecting a lot of auto attackers. You've got Jace, Skarner, and Kog'Maw who all want a basic attack. What's kind of the threshold? When do you rush a Frozen Heart then?
Really, you want that Frozen Heart by about 20, 25 minutes. As a Maokai, as soon as you get that Philistone, as soon as you get the Heart of Gold, you either get that Shirelia Reverie or you build that Frozen Heart right away. And having that, they would have been able to power through mid-game and really not allow COG to come back as quickly and just hopefully close it out.
So what was the big turning point then? What made that early mid-game shift to the end game where it was CLG's favor?
The biggest turning point in the game was actually the team fight in the forest. The moment that Karthus wall went off, it cut off all but one player onto World Elite, and the Maokai went in with the Twisted Advance anyways, forcing the entire team to run through that wall. That wall, by that point in the game, is absolutely huge. It shreds about 40 MR and armor, and getting every single member on the team shredded is just going to absolutely destroy you. And really, some members at that point didn't want to go through, and some went through. So it also created a distraction, making each individual player to actually assess, am I going to go through, am I not? And really, not every person went through at the same time. They weren't able to shut down one person right away.
So what could WE have done different? You mentioned the Frozen Heart and the initiation on the wall. Was there any other major move that W could have done, early, mid, or late to change that game around?
Really, the moment they had the advantage, aside from that Frozen Heart, they were very, very aggressive. They need to time their aggression a little bit better. There was one dive on bottom where they were able to pick up multiple kills, and that was right after Karthus had used his ultimate. And almost every single dive after that, it just happens to be they dive with the Karthus ult up, and they came out even, or they came out one behind. So making sure that they gank mid a little bit more, because if you think about it, if you put a lot of pressure on mid, there's no global presence elsewhere to counteract that. So if they were able to shut down Froggen a little bit more, put more pressure there, it would have been a little bit more successful.
Now, Dan, if you find yourself coming into a game where a team like Counterlogic Europe just wants to force it into the late game, what are your options to stop that from happening? Because it seems to go in their favor every time they get it.
Definitely. COG EU is one of those teams where they like the very, very late game. They go for that hyper carry late game comp, and they depend on their team fighting skills and their composition into the late game. To counter that, you either have to shut them down very hard early, shut out the game, not let them come back at any point, or you just have a composition that's even stronger late game and play at their pace. And then when it gets to that late game, if you team fight as well as they can, but with a stronger late game composition, you can start taking matches off of them.
Right on.
Alrighty, well, thank you, Dan, very much. But early in the day, we asked you guys to send us questions on Twitter by tweeting at #LOLWorlds or at League of Legends. Well, we've got some of your questions right here, and we want to answer them. So let's see what we got.
All right, so we are going to see what questions we have. Necrofrania, who's the most successful champion this tournament, Freak?
I gotta say, I think it's Shen overall. You look at pick and ban rates, and you got Ezreal up there at the top tier, and Alistar and Shen over there. But I think Shen's been the biggest playmaker overall. I think win rate aside, that he's been setting up the most matches. He's been first picked so very often, and you look at the one really dominant game from Mach Noon there, where he carried his team in the group stage. I think he's kind of had the most impact because you can bring in Alistar as a tank, and there are lots of tanks. There's lots of crowd control, but Shen is one of those few guys left who's got that global presence, who's been picked a lot, and he affects the match so much. So that having Shen in the roster really makes another team respond to him very, very heavily, and teams have to continually practice how do we fight against Shen.
I like it. I like it. I'm obviously going to throw out my choice as well. I'm going to go ahead and say Ezreal. We don't have the perfect statistics on there. We saw Ezreal throughout this tournament getting quadra kills, very high pick ban rate, and we've just seen him pretty much in every game that's been played.
He's really common as well.
Right.
There's these 4 attack damage carriers that are getting played a whole lot this tournament.
For sure.
And there's others in the roster as well, but there's been 4 that have been played the most, and Ezreal is really his hot pick among those.
So I believe we have more questions that we'll be answering within the next matchup, guys. So keep asking them. #LOLWorlds. So you guys can be sure to get that questions in. We're going to answer them as well. May just come up before Jat and D-Man come on for the next matchup as well. And for a little bit more insight, because we're not even done here yet. The championship playoffs just has tons and tons of things coming at you. We have him, man himself, Hotshot GG, up here with us in the casting booth now. George, how you doing?
Not too bad. Yourself?
Oh, well, we're doing pretty fantastic. How are you feeling so far, with what's been happening with the teams, the strategies we're seeing, and now what's going to happen with Moscow 5 TPA?
It's really been a roller coaster of emotions. The game that just happened right now was exceptional. CLG EU is behind by so much gold, and they always come back in the end. Their team comp was really, really good, and they played really well, and it was really close.
So, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. As far as Moscow 5 goes and TPA, they're both exceptional teams, and I put them on the same level. So.
Right on. Wow. All right.
So you pretty much own Logic Gaming. You own that team. You own that brand. Do you get heart attacks every time your European team's in a tournament? Because it seems like it's comebacks every single time. That's got to be stressful on you.
Well, it is stressful, but I also have to kind of detach myself and be there for CLGNA too. So it's kind of, I have to find a good balance between sticking to my own team and my own my own team and my own fans, but also I always root for CLGU. They're my favorite team, other
than yourself,
our own, obviously. And they're a really good group of guys, and I really enjoy living with them and training with them.
So then what do you think about them up against Azubu Frost next time? They just matched in a BO5 just a month back and started at 2-0. Now the semifinal is a best of 3. Do you think another 2-0s coming out?
A 2-0?
Yeah, you think they're going to win against Frost?
I'm not sure about that. Frost has a really good mental game. Like, their ability to stay in the game, just mentally, is impressive, and it really matters. CLGU has the, I guess, maybe team comp advantage and maybe kind of like a individual player advantage, but Azubu Frost has great teamwork, and they just have the most awesome mental game. I cannot applaud them enough for it.
So speaking of mental games then, you've been in a lot of tournaments. You've been competing at the top level since pretty much League's inception.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been in a lot of really stressful situations, where it's down to the wire, you're 2 games from elimination, there's a lot of money on the line. How do you mentally prepare yourselves when when every single game is like the most important match of your life?
I mean, I don't think any of us really prepare. We just go in there, guns blazing, and we just try to do our best. And we react to the situation as best as we can. None of us really train to be, or none of us really prepared to be, in front of the audience and to be under that pressure. So,
all right. Do you start out with your hands shaking a little bit and you get used to it, or are you calm to the point where you play a match and you're like, okay, it's game, we'll go hard?
Always first games are stressful, and these 2 teams that just played, they had the stress of first game and their only game. So, I'm sure both these teams were really, really stressed out at the very start of the game.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. And you could see like how intense it was because Snoopy actually baited a flash from Leona, even though his team was around there, and they kind of waited. Leona just ran out, and she was really under pressure. You could feel it, and it was intense.
So you think those feelings of pressure and emotion did weigh on them?
Yeah, of course. In a best of 1, it really weighs on you, and you play more passive. Like, again, Snoopy had the ability to do Baron with their team. They ran for that Baron. They started doing it, and the second that Sapling was thrown over, he backed off because he could have secured the Baron. It was most likely that they were going to get it, but he didn't want to get outsmited by Clearlove, and the team didn't want that possibility, so they backed out. And that's a decision he probably would have not taken if it was that was a decision he probably would have taken if it was a scrim. He would have tried to steal the Baron or secure the Baron.
Cool. You awesome?
Pretty great insight. Hotshot, coming into these matches, Freak said, what's the preparation? You come in guns blazing. Mm-hmm. But coming in here, what's the atmosphere for that and the intensity? How much does that play on you guys?
It always weighs heavily on us. Sometimes the crowd cheering, if they're rooting for you, it's a good thing, and it gets you going, and it gives you that hype, and it basically puts this mentality that we're ready, guys, we can do this. But sometimes the crowd cheers for the other team, and you have to kind of put that aside and be like, we need to show these guys what's up. We need to win over this crowd. So, I don't know. It's hard.
All right, so in your mind, coming up from Moscow 5 BenQ and Taipai Assassins with a very favorited suffocation strategy where they keep the pressure on. We see that Moscow 5 BenQ, especially with their Eve game, played very much into the late game so they could get their burst composition into roll and into fruition. How do you think Moscow 5 is going to counter that, and where do you think the mechanics come in for both teams? Is it fights or is it that laning phase?
Well, I think that the laning phase from TPA is really, really good. They have some solid players that they're not ganked easily. And Moscow 5 likes rolling through those early game advantages where Diamond ganks really, really well. And so I don't think we're going to see much failure from TPA side in terms of dying to those ganks.
Okay.
And as far as team fights go, I think Moscow 5 has a more impressive team fight, but TPA always has these really nice strategies and these really great laning phase executions. So I can't really give a favorite. Okay, I'll give a favorite. Never mind. I changed my mind. I'll give it to TPA this time.
All right.
I actually think that Moscow 5 has a better mental game, but again, I think that it can be won in the laning phase from TPA, so it's going to be close, really close.
So then, when you come in here, one thing I want to talk to you about is gaming houses and how teams prepare for major tournaments like this. Now, talking to Dan backstage, he was saying that gaming houses aren't mandatory; they're just really useful. They help keep people sort of in line because, if you got a guy next to you 20 feet away, you can wake him up, get him out of bed, and say, "We're scrimming, bro. Like, let's get the games going." How do you feel about gaming houses? CLG's got one recently.
Well, gaming houses can't hinder your performance. All it does is help anyone on the team that kind of needs that structure and that sort of thing. And since it doesn't do anything but help your team, it's not really it's not necessary, but it's always an added bonus. So you can go on without them, but if you're trying to grab every advantage that you can, then you should probably go into a gaming house and get that going.
So what does it mean then if M5 BenQ actually ends up winning the whole thing? I think they're the only team left in this tournament without a gaming house.
They're just so talented. They're just a group of individual players that are just so talented and prepared and structured that they can win the Worlds without even having a gaming house. And I would be impressed. And they're coming close. So.
Okay, so let's talk about the regions left in the tournament. We've got 2 European teams, 2 Asian teams. The American teams actually had a very unfortunate drop very early on. Do you think North America is behind the times? Are they just not prepared, the 3 teams that showed up? What led to America's early exit, first of all?
Well, I actually made a post on Reddit about this, and basically I outlined the teams that NA had to practice against and the teams that kind of EU, well, I would say not really half of EU, but basically CLG had to play with, and the teams like the Asian teams had to play against. And it was like 9 to 10 pro teams that you could just constantly scrim against 12 hours a day. And the NA side, there was really just Dignitas and TSM that were a top-level team. So there's a really big training distinction. Like, even if Dignitas and TSM tried their hardest to train, they would only be able to scrim each other and maybe like 1 or 2 American teams like MME Ferris and like Orb. It's really hard to get exceptional practice in.
So then, what would you do? Would you keep trying to go to the Korean tournaments or keep trying to travel abroad? Would you take like a mid-season break and try to practice against the world's best elsewhere? Or how would you level your game?
This is a really hard struggle that NA has to kind of find on their own. Do we want to try to develop the scene as a whole and try to encourage each other to, create a better NA? Or do we want to just every team kind of fend for themselves and go to the across the world if they want to train and get better themselves? So I guess that's a decision that has to be made come Season 3.
All right. Well, we're going to see if that ends up being the case. Season 3, of course, starting up I think early next year. I don't remember the exact time frame or if it's been announced, so, but, certainly a lot of exciting matches, in store for you guys as this tournament goes on. So, Hotshot, thank you very much for your insights. Looks like the players are getting ready pretty soon. So, Riv, what do we got in store?
It's going to be our first semifinal matchup between Freak, 2 huge regional superpowers, M5 BenQ and the Taipai Assassins, to come out very strong. We've seen a little bit from M5 BenQ and from Taipai. We'll have to see what this game brings out.
So it's interesting because these teams, I wouldn't say they're untested by any means, but they came through as regional buys, both in winning in the region, automatically into the quarterfinals. And in their quarterfinals, they 2-0'd the opposition. That's a really good track record so far. Yes. These guys are, for all intents and purposes, very much undefeated, and that's a great place to start. But you still got these teams that are kind of traveling across the world and trying to set themselves up. We are in for a treat. These guys have never played each other before. TPA said M5 was their most respected team in the world. They called them the best team in Europe. And M5, they've beaten one of China's best teams, but can they keep that up?
And Freak, let's figure it out. Let's get these teams introduced, guys. Starting as the red team, they are the dominant powerhouse, hailing from Taiwan. It is the Taipai Assassins. Freak.
We have them here up on stage. You can see the camera going through, waving to the camera, smiling. These guys a little bit confident going in there. And actually, talking with Wicked before these matches started. CLG EU's been playing TPA for practice these last few days. Since Saturday, they've been playing each other. They're on opposite sides of the bracket, so if those teams do meet, they would play in the finals. And Wicked said that he thinks TPA will win this match. Hotshot, again, the same thing, said that he really thought TPA, the Taipei Assassins, had a great shot in this matchup. But I know the internet, reading all those comments, a lot of people expect that Moscow 5 victory, the M5 BenQ versus Zebu Frost grand final. But a lot of predictions here for the Taiwanese team, so there's some good things
Can you blame them? You know, what has Moscow 5 shown us on land before? It's that they always take those wins. They really only falter offline.
They've only ever lost to one
online,
team.
I should
really.
say.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's really M5's play is that they will actually practice strategies online, but when LAN comes, it's their A game. But TPA, again, they are proven on LAN. You know, they go into the GPL, they win a lot of games there. 3 losses, I think, in that entire league. They've come through demolishing a lot of competition. You know, Sword 3-0'd the group. Sword beat CLG EU. TPA came up and said, that's nice, Maknoon, but 2-0 is going to be your fate. Thank you very much. TPA, really, really good.
Hey guys, we have heard from TPA. We have seen the team. Let's meet their challengers, starting as the blue team, the champions from Europe. It's Moscow 5, BenQ.
And what a star-studded lineup. You can see their bottom lane on screen right now. They have been one of the driving forces here for M5 BenQ, and they've really brought out, I think more so than most other teams, a lot of unique picks. Gosi Pepper had run that jungle Zyra earlier in the quarterfinals. AD Kennen was a very big pick back in Kiev. They're one of the first teams to bring out Misfortune that we've now seen Woong bring out from Azubu Frost. These guys very, very innovative as well. And their roster is star-studded. You know, there's a long history to M5 BenQ. It started with Alex East trying to put a team together, ultimately ended up teaming with Genja primarily. Genja said, guys, I want to bring Darien into this lineup. Darien's my homie. Let's bring him in a top lane. They found Gosi Pepper, who we saw at the very, very beginning. And Gosi Pepper said, I've got the guy for the job for jungle. We're going to bring in Diamond. And Diamond, it's funny for him because he came into that team not only 1,800 ELO, but only knowing Lee Sin.
1,800 ELO?
Yeah,
that's bad.
Well, you think that, right? But it's a team game. Individual skill, of course, it's very, very relevant.
Right.
But Diamond, I mean, you know, he starts knowing one champion, of course, still favoring that Lee Sin, but he's so strong. It's teamwork based, right? That famous M5 counter jungling is not just because he runs in there and kills a guy, steals gold, and walks out. It's the team overall playing so strongly. Yeah, there's Darien up on screen, and that's, you know, all the solo lanes or the bottom lanes pushing to the turret and allowing everyone else to collapse together. So any star performance you see from any individual on this roster is really the whole team coming together and being strong as a unit.
And Freak, as you said before, you know, Moscow 5 piecing together a team that didn't work for them in the beginning, and then somehow coming to light now with one of the best teams in the world from Season 2 on. Taipei Assassins just grabbing their house actually a few weeks before Season 2 started, as we just talked about really what that means for a team and how well they can coordinate in scrims and just how they're practicing. It's going to be very big for them. However, on April 7th, Freak, that roster was changed to add in BB and Toys. So we'll see if that really affects anything for them. They still have Mistake, they still have Stanley Top, and their team is very good on paper and still great on Summoner's Rift.
And they are phenomenal overall. I mean, these guys, again, not losing many matches. The regional champions coming through with just giant victories the whole way out. And this is the good thing, right? These are two rosters that have been together and solid for at least 6 months each. And that's a really good sort of time frame for a team to really gel together and solidify. Both these teams just all stars throughout that entire roster. And, you know, we had a couple of predictions, but I really can't call it either way.
You know, let's find out what we kind of think of what's going to happen in the match, guys. We have our keys to the match as always, so let's look what both teams have to do right after we get this awesome checkout of what these teams feel about this life-changing semifinal matchup in this next video.
Taipei Assassins had faster wins than any other team in this tournament so far. If they continue that kind of fast-tier play, it's going to crash up against Moscow 5, who also plays really aggressive.
Moscow 5 is always ready to come in very strong, but people don't know that much about Taipei Assassins, so it's going to be an amazing matchup if they bring out something innovative.
他们很厉害，然后我们很尊敬他，我们也很想跟他们一决胜负。我们想知道我们可以把他们逼得怎么样，甚至从他们手上拿下胜利。
果我们明天可以打得跟今天一模一样的话，我们绝对可以打赢看看。
So Taipai Assassins are just going to have to get really aggressive against Moscow 5.
There you see it. It's all just about the aggression. But let's check out what TPA, those Taipei Assassins, have to do to beat Europe's best team. Freak, first off, they're going to have to free up little balls in the jungle.
He is a superstar player. He's so strong overall. He's been playing even on the North American server since beta. Actually, had school, went to university in Canada. Was friends with Big Fat LP, which is where he got a screen name from in the first place. And this guy has been in the scene just forever overall. And his all-star champion is Alistair. Now, I don't think he's going to get it. I think M5's done the research and know to shut him down. But what Lil Balls needs to do is really set up his teammates. He needs to be able to go aggressively and get his teammates ahead. He can't sit there and camp and be forced to counter gank over, constantly. He needs to actually create aggression, get his teammates far ahead. He can't sit there and camp Stanley. They really need to get someone farmed on that roster. Lil Balls needs to make the plays. He has to be free to be active.
And the next one, moving in from Hong Kong to join them in Taiwan, Toys needs to carry.
Toys is such a very, very big deal, and he's up against some of the fiercest competition in the world with Alex Ish. Alex, a heavy roamer, makes a lot of plays throughout the map, and he's pretty much the one mid laner who roams more than anyone else. So Toys needs to take that and realize that he needs to put on a lot of pressure. He needs to push Alex down. We saw actually in the Invictus matchup versus M5 where Alex gave up a couple of kills to the mid laner from Invictus, where he got shut down by Cassiopeia as Evelyn, and that was a really good job by Taipai. Toys needs to embrace that and do the same kind of thing, force people down, bring himself up.
And with one of the most versatile champion pools of any team in League of Legends, and the most versatile way to use them, Taipei Assassins has to know they just cannot ban out Moscow 5.
Yeah, that team has been together for so long, and these players are so experienced that there's no way they can shut down M5 just based on picks. TPA has to come up with their own strategy, and this is something that Dan Din said. I talked to him backstage, and he was saying that these Asian teams in particular will pretty much prepare about like 7 strategies and just refine them in practice. They're less about the counter picking, they're less about the counter so much as saying, okay, we're gonna go with strat A or strat B or strat C, and they'll refine and refine and refine it, and they need to make sure their champion select is based on themselves because they're an aggressive team. You saw Jat in that package saying they win their games the fastest of any team here. If they put that aggression on from second one and don't let up, they just want to make their picks happen, kind of champ select for themselves and not for M5, and just keep it going.
So now we know Taipei Assassins' keys to victory. Let's see how Moscow 5, Ben Q, can assert their dominance over this matchup. Freak, the first one, much like Wicked, they just need to leave Darian alone.
Yeah, Darian on an island is the best place for him to be because you saw his matches against Invictus, and it just did not matter. He got shut down, 0-4 on Olaf, and then ended the game 8-4, just picking up kills all day.
And on Xin the first game.
Yeah, in Xin Zhao, he had a really bad start as well, still got the Sunfire Cape done, still became the tank, did fine. They don't need to have Diamond to run around babysitting him. He always comes back. Darian is so fearsome, actually. If you think about SK Gaming a few months back, where they had a kind of a roster swap where they sent Kevin down to AD carry, and they had Ocelot run up to top lane. Yep. It was rumored that it was Kevin quitting top lane because he said he could never beat Darian. Now, that might be unconfirmed, that might not be true, but I heard it. And, Darian is fearsome. Like, you got to believe that's absolutely a possibility here. And you look at players like Alex Ish here on screen, those are the guys you actually want to get farmed because they'll have more of an impact early mid-game. Darian will always show up late. Let him do it.
And the next one going on, this one really focusing on Diamond Prox, having, I believe, at least 6 dragons within the 2 games of Invictus, 2 of those being steals. They need to continue to maintain objective control.
This was really how M5 turned around the early lead that Invictus had, where IG really turned on the pressure, got a lot of successful ganks, really kind of pushed the game away from M5 in the first 20 minutes. But what Diamond and Ghost Pepper did, specifically the 2 of them, was they would actually duo up on Dragon. It was crazy. They would time the opponent's wards, say, okay, the ward is done, Diamond would start it, Zyra would come over from behind and sort of help him out and pick that kill off, and while top, mid, and the AD carry are still fighting in lane, IG didn't realize that they were actually sneaking a dragon in, and M5 did this multiple times and continued their gold and kept up throughout that game. It's a trick that M5 needs to continue here, where that early game is going to be rocky against TPA. They need to find something in that early mid game to still keep the gold up. That's going to be objectives like turrets and dragons.
And for Moscow 5, with Toys and BB being so scary throughout this tournament, they really need just to adapt to the right carry.
This is really what happened, again, with the IG matchup, where everyone on TPA is so strong, they've all got a lot of damage. Any of them can actually carry that matchup. If Stanley has an amazing lane up top, he's going to do really well. Toys and BB the same way. They've got to shut down the guys putting out all the damage.
So, guys, we are going to be looking into jumping into Champion Select quite soon. Looks like both teams have got themselves in to see what we will have for your picks and bans underway here. We said they should not try to ban out Moscow 5, but TPA still has to do what they can to try and get the advantage from Champion Select.
So here we go. The thing is going on, and we're seeing the first few bans come out. Now, M5's first ban on Maokai plays to their common strengths. They have fighters. Like, that is how Diamond plays the jungle. It's Lee Sin, of course, being banned out right here. Shyvana, Udyr, those are his top 3 jungles. He'll go to those 3 over and over and over again and try to set up those situations. M5, though, they've got their own sort of roster tier of champion selects. Nunu, Sona, if not that, Zyra for support, Ezreal and Kog'Maw, the big 2 AD carries here. So they're kind of setting up these counteractions. Now, you're seeing them drop out the really common picks here, and they want to give themselves, a Shen top lane. They want to give themselves maybe that mid Evelyn or a nice team comp for a Kog'Maw in the background. So you're going to see what they run for right here. Typically, when you've got first pick, the first few picks in general that come in here, you look for something safe, something that works with kind of everything. Nunu is one of those examples where, he can synergize for an aggressive bottom lane, or he can play kind of a protect the Kog'Maw composition. We saw that from Counter Logic Gaming Europe just a few minutes ago, where it was Nunu Kog'Maw in the bottom, Karthus scaled throughout the mid, and they had everyone else kind of play just defense across that board. It's really, really scary for them.
Freak, surprisingly enough, they do go for that Kog'Maw pick, even though they don't have the Orianna in the game. But, however, Blitzcrank is taken out of the lineup, so it's a little safer to play that Kog without as much crowd control, especially grabbing Shen for the safety.
Exactly. That makes a lot of sense. When you put Shen and Kog'Maw together, it really opens up a world of possibilities. Nunu's kind of relative power absolutely drops when you take Kog off the field, and when you put Shen in there, you don't necessarily need an Orianna. You just need some kind of burst healing or burst shield, because, if Nocturne Leona or Nocturne Malphite or something like that jumps onto you, it is a scary place to be. Right? And so you need some kind of survival tool, like a Shen ultimate, like a Stand United, and that's going to give Kog'Maw pretty much free reign to fight, and that's kind of what's gone down here. So you're seeing that Shen Kog'Maw, really strong combo. Alex Each going right back to that Evelyn. He forced Invictus to ban Eve the very second game, and we'd seen her banned so very much, but picked up immediately by M5, and they're like, yep, we're going to go for Eve. Again, whenever it's available, a very, very strong roamer, sets up a lot of opportunities, will scale throughout the game. And the crazy thing here, this is the second time we've seen M5 pick Evelyn and not care about that mid lane. He does not care what he's up against. Like, we saw the Cassiopeia counter pick against Invictus, did not care, lost a kill in lane, but still scaled throughout, went like 8-3 in that game, had a phenomenal job. Diamond still trying to figure out what his champion is, but you're seeing M5 already set up for a late game scaling composition. Grabbing this Yorick here in this means they're also not burstable anymore. No matter who TPA tries to kill out, they're still going to be able to put a clone back on someone, whether they revive Alex Each, whether they revive Genja, no matter what it is, the guy's going to come back to life and continue fighting. It's a really strong setup still here for M5.
So now, knowing with those picks, do you still think they may go with the Vayne? That would be the super late game team coming from Moscow 5 Ben Q, but they've, last time they actually showed Zyra and then went to select Eve and took Zyra later. So they've tended to do that quite a bit on M5's side.
Actually, Vayne would make quite a bit of sense here, because they're against a not hyper-aggressive lane. Whenever you're against a Kog'Maw, he's not the biggest lane bully. It's not Corki, Ezreal, or Graves.
He's got to wait so long
to jump into your face. Right, yeah, he's got to swing at auto attacks. He doesn't really spam abilities much at you. He's not a great poker. You can take some damage, but if you've got Nunu Vayne together, that late game is ludicrously good. And especially when you've got a Yorick on that team, even if Vayne does die, again, she will come back to life and continue wreaking havoc. IPL 3 was actually the tournament that was defined by Yorick Vayne. You saw teams have to ban out Yorick to deal with that kind of situation. It made it really, really awkward. And it's weird here to actually see Taric picked up with the Kog'Maw, because that's not a lane synergy you see very often. You typically see Taric as an aggressive laner, as a bullier, but they're saying, no, we're going to pair that up with Kog, and they've got a really weird mix of lane control, where Taric can stop any aggression, but at the same time, they've also still got Kog'Maw just being Kog'Maw and really kind of scaling himself throughout. So you're still seeing, a lot of potential pickups here, and really no guaranteed overall strategies. The mid lane's still not picked up for Taipai Assassins, and still that total bottom lane and the top lane, or possibly jungle, really still not picked up for M5 BenQ.
Freak, they're going to have to be really safe in this bottom lane. Unless they choose to do some type of swap, Lee Sin, or at least Diamond Prox himself, starting on that blue side, likes to start those red champions and could go for that early bottom gank. So that Tarek, although isn't the best synergy, as you said, with Kog'Maw, is going to help. We see them actually going for the Vayne pickup and the Xin Zhao.
So this is M5 really playing a very similar strategy to their very first game in this tournament, where they've got that Evelynn in middle. They're not worried too much about the matchup. They've got, just a hyper scaling bottom lane Kenja going with the summoner heal on Vayne to keep himself alive longer. And Xin Zhao's going to be forced to play the role of main tank. Actually, no, Xin Zhao won't play main tank. He's actually going to be in the jungle. It's York up at the top lane. And York should be able to farm himself up some decent durability. Xin Zhao's going to be much more of an assassin in this lineup. And that's going to be a little bit hard for him, because I don't know if Xin Zhao Evelynn can completely kill off that Kog'Maw. He's got the Shen shield still available. There's a stun and a heal from Tarek. I'm actually not sure that M5 BenQ can kill off Kog'Maw. So right now, that point we talked about, adapt to the carry, I don't know if they can completely adapt to BB in this game. It's going to depend a lot on how that lane matches up. As they're seeing the rest of this champion pool come through, looks like Taipai Assassins going for a Karthus pickup. So it's interesting. M5 playing a team very, very similar to what they ran Game 1 against Invictus. TPA running a team, honestly, very similar to what Counterlogic Gaming Europe just ran just a few minutes ago. Both these teams actually ridiculously good late games. A mix of teamfight presence in the middle. But these are awkwardly similar teams. I'm actually not sure who comes out ahead here.
Freak, I'm gonna put it out there that I feel like Moscow 5 during that mid to late game is going to have the better initiate. You're looking for Kog'Maw and Karthus to really start to tear out some damage. Alex Ish will be sure to find one of them in the beginning, and you're going to see Nunu iceballing Kog'Maw, completely shutting down his attack speed. So once those are out, the cooldowns from Bear Stance and Dazzle waiting to come back up, and Taunt, if they don't hit those perfectly, it's going to be a very tough fight, because Moscow 5, like Hotshot said, like Dan Din said, they have amazing fighting mechanics.
This is going to be really awkward as well. It's going to be very difficult. M5's fighting mechanics are amazing, because Genji's going to have really no chance of getting shut down. It'll be very difficult for him to get kicked out of this matchup. It's difficult. Neither team has amazing hard engage. There's a little bit of poke on both sides, a little bit of pressure on both sides. But this game, I feel like it's going to be the story of AD carries, of late game carries, who aren't going to get caught too much and will just start eviscerating the front line. I think it's a matchup more about gold than about positioning, because there's no ideal positioning on either side.
Yeah, it's going to be that catch somebody off guard the entire time, hide in the bush, allow Nunu's ult to start something, and continue a very long and sustained fight with the Yorick ulti on Vayne. And that's going to be the #1 objective for them as they come into this matchup. TPA, as we said before, that suffocation strategy that Moscow 5 may not be able to get away from right away, but we'll be sure to see them fighting hard as they come into that mid to late game. Ladies and gentlemen, the game is underway. Your first quarterfinal match, or semifinal matchup, I should say, of the League of Legends World Championship playoffs. Here we go.
Alrighty. We get ourselves up into this one. The blue team, once again, M5 BenQ. The red team you're seeing on your screen right here is Taipai Assassins. This is going to be an incredibly epic matchup. It's a best of 3, and the winner of this match, the winner of this best of 3, moves on to the $1 million match, that grand final. We're seeing who's going to win between M5 and TPA. Later today, we see who wins between Azubu, Frost, and Counterlogic Gaming Europe. While that's a rematch, that Frost CLG match, that's a rematch of a tournament just a month ago. These are teams who have never seen each other. And once again, TPA saying they most respect M5 of any team in the world. M5 have come through as a heavy favorite here. There is a lot of questions to be answered here. The last Mandarin-speaking team left in this group. There's a Korean team left there from Asia. But we're about to be whittling down this roster very, very quickly. You're seeing TPA open up pretty defensively. You're seeing M5 as well opening pretty defensively. Neither of these teams looking for early aggression.
It looks like Alex Ich just using that invisibility to his advantage right now, just staying slightly out of range, seeing a glimpse of each of the champions on Taipei's side as they are hovering that top side. Coming into this, they do have that Udyr in the jungle. You usually see an Udyr focusing blue. What do you think they could be proposing with this, just top guard? Do you think they're going to be aggressive from Moscow 5, or they're going to go right around to blue?
They could jump there in at any time. This is one of the really difficult things here, is especially, I actually want to look at Shen real quick and see if Stanley has even learned Vorpal Spike, because if he has saved his point, Stanley has saved his first skill point, so they could absolutely give Lil Balls a lizard buff and gank right away, but instead it looks like they are going to go aggressively after all and go for an invade.
Looks like they're coming around at just the right time. That blue buff spawning 5 seconds ago, they are going to push them off of this. Moscow 5 kind of conceding here. They're not putting too much pressure. Alex East coming around from the backside as well. The top is Zin. The Dazzler goes down. Too much focus. Little Ball is going to help his team now. Diamond with the flash. Alex East in poor positioning. And it looks like Taipai Assassins, although in somewhat of not a solid position, they will be able to just walk this back and forth. They force the flash from Diamond, and that's going to be very good. You're not going to see huge aggression from him, and that'll kind of shut down his presence out of the jungle.
So this is interesting overall. Oh my gosh, Toys actually teleported into the bottom lane to deal with Genja. I have not seen this in quite some time, but they are lane swapping, and it's just like the Koreans play against Caston. They're putting a 2-on-1 in that mid lane. Any sort of melee mage to run the mid lane, especially one without great long-range tools. Like if it's Gragas can 2v1, it's not really that big of a deal, but someone like Evelyn or Cassidon is going to have a really hard time fighting that 2-on-1 there. So that might have been why Tarek got picked up, is once they realized that Blitzcrank was banned out, they said, you know what, okay, let's go for an aggressive mid lane here. You can't do the same thing with Leona because Leona must jump on top of you, but with Tarek here, they can shut down Alex. They have a completely free lane for Kog'Maw, so he's going to have gold this entire matchup. This is really, really good.
TPA formulated this perfectly. They went into the jungle and made sure that Moscow 5 wasn't in lane. They weren't soaking up experience. Then when they brought these lanes into sight, they did not give Moscow 5 enough time to react, so they're going to have to stick with what they have for now until they can really have to go back or are forced out of lane. So TPA with a very great strat mentally right now.
And I think they hope to actually give that golem buff away to Toys at the beginning. They know Udyr can jungle without that kind of buff, but Toys wants that mana to survive the lane. At the same time, they're pushing up for a gank.
And this is what you get out of a squishy AP carry going down for first blood for Moscow 5.
That is the perfect play right there. That is exactly what they need to do, is they know he's got a bit of a weak matchup. They got Diamond around the jungle fast enough that he did show up for that gank. That's a really, really great play. Even got the blue steal as part of it. That's really good counter-strat orchestration here by M5 BenQ. Alex still with a bad lane, only 2 minion kills. You've got to remember that. That's a very big disadvantage. But at the same time, it's still risky for it's still difficult for both these teams this early game.
So we see Udyr coming out to middle. Looks like he could try to get some help on Little Balls, showing some presence, going back into the jungle. They had that ward on Wraiths, so he could retime it, actually putting another one down. Diamond with both buffs, making his way through the jungle. Gosu joining in mid, so Alex can get a little bit easier of a time here. We see Mistake's hand is raised, and we're going to get him fixed up. Probably just pointing out a few things with his headphones. Could have a little bit of a sound issue, but these guys right now with that lane swap, you saw Karthus go down, and I'd say Vayne is a pretty good counter to that. You can condemn him away if he's getting close. You can just dive away from the lay waste. That's going to be, like you said, a fed lane for that.
It's difficult on both sides. It's interesting. So as far as the lane goes, you're absolutely right. That Genji's going to have a really good time fighting Karthus one-on-one. She's got Tumble to dodge lay waste. She's got Contend to push him back. Yeah. In general, she should be pretty safe. The difficulty, though, is that he's not worried about the lane too much. He's just trying to farm and survive, and as long as M5 doesn't keep showing up, he'll be okay. The difficulty for Vayne actually is team fights. Yes, she can condemn him back, and that makes it a little bit nice, but if she's ever to fight, she will be in range for Wall of Pain, she will be in range for Lay Waste, and she's almost definitely going to be in range for Defile, especially if you played Suicide Karthus, who just runs into the front and tries to soak up hits and tries to just get you in range for everything. You've got to sort of realize, like, even if Genja has a really good team fight and Karthus dies, he's got to realize, okay, well, do I stay in Defile and keep team fighting and hope to out-lifesteal it, or do I get zoned for 7 seconds, get forced out of the battle because of Defile and because of Lay Waste, and come back later? Leaving 7 seconds for BB to fight people as Kog'Maw is really, really scary. So Genja in a bit of a tricky spot. I think that's actually why partially TPA waited so long to pick their mage, is they were trying to see what was going to come out from M5. When it's Vayne that comes out, Karthus is a really, really good pick here, and actually can really screw with her early mid game. When we used to see Kennen be more popular, we saw Kennen as a counter pick to Vayne because that's slicing Maelstrom the same way. Right. If Vayne is to fight at all, she's going to be in range of slicing Maelstrom. And if she's to fight at all here, she's going to be in range of Defile and Lay Waste.
That could be very tough for them. They have that oriented team that wants to get into the fight. They have Xin. They have Nunu that's going to have to get in there to ult, if anything, to slow people down with that Ice Blast as well. And you just have a team that wants to get in. So they're going to have to, at some point, leave him to himself. So he's got to be careful.
And this is interesting, too, because, while both teams are a bit late-game oriented, TPA's lineup is all about kind of getting in and sticking to it. They've got hardcore initiation. Udyr, come out, Kite. at all. He's just simply got to go all in. Shen goes all in. Kog'Maw's going to fire from the back, and that's fine. But, you know, Karthus and all these guys are going to kind of just go in and just kind of go for the push and fight hard and stick in that battle. That's kind of how TPA is going to get into those fights, and that really plays, again, to their advantage because they will try to push out, you know, Vayne and things like that. M5's lineup is much more... I mean, they've got the hardcore initiation, but it's very much about burst damage. We saw this synergy in the very first game where it was Xin Zhao on top of Evelynn. Xin Zhao does a percentage of your current health with Crescent Sweep. It's going to hit everyone for a lot of damage. Evelynn's going to hit everyone with her ultimate for a percentage of their maximum health. So at the very start of the fight, if TPA is not positioned well and their team is melee heavy, it's aggression to the fight, it's get close together, they can all get hit by those ultimates and all get shrunk down to half health the second the fight starts. That is a scary place to be in. I mean, we just saw that first team comp, you know, 3 of them dealing percentage max health damage, right? You know, again, Xin Zhao, Evelynn, and Kog'Maw. Well, now Xin Zhao, Evelynn, and Vayne, all of them will continue to keep scaling with the game for free. Again, it's a late game team composition, a lot of burst damage at the beginning, and it's just kind of held in the back by a late game carry who will keep killing people off. So you're going to look for these fights to be, you're going to look basically to the first 4 seconds of the fight, where is M5's initiation good? Did Alex get free roam? Did Genja get free roam? If yes to either of those, great. They're going to be in pretty good shape for the fight overall. TPA has to go all in their persistent damage. If they actually catch someone with their all in, with Shen into Udyr into Taric, that person should die. They've got so much persistent damage with Karthus, with Kog'Maw, and even with just like Shen and Udyr kind of punching things in the face, they can kill someone in those 5 seconds. So, you know, does M5 get the right initiation, burst someone down, disengage the right target, have him re-enter, or does TPA catch that one target, kill the one guy, and then move on onto a 5v4? That's really the sort of make or break point on these team fights.
You know, he takes it into his own hands, and I think really the person to watch for this, and when it gets into the initiation, is Alex Ich. Really makes Eve into a hard initiator for what it's worth. We saw him diving Kid completely within 5 members of Invictus Gaming during their games to set up and start the fights, pretty much from like just, it was a requiem hitting somebody. You saw the life disappear. Alex would take so many cooldowns, and then he would flash out of the fight. And that's what you're talking about, Freak, because if TPA cannot use those first cooldowns right, can get those sustained hits in, they're going to get bursted out of the fight. So we're going to watch for Alex Ich to really come in here and start these out. It's going to be scary, though. You have Taunt, Dazzle, and Bear Stance. So if they don't get those fights right, as you said, it's going to be pretty torturous. We should see this coming into late game. Alex does not like to fight. We saw him going down to Cassiopeia on Taipai quite a bit in the Invictus game. He was just having trouble in lane. Here, seems like he's actually doing a little bit better in the start. And the mids have dodged back and forth. Obviously, he does have that double support in mid with him, so he won't be going against Karthus in the orthodox middle AP carry gameplay. So we'll have to see if Alex can really get himself formidable enough to do the initiations he did in that last game, because that Eve was really a factor for any of the team fights to begin.
This is actually, and she is a huge factor. You're absolutely right. You know, Alex is going to be a huge playmaker for this M5 lineup, but it's different here. What TPA's done, again, despite the Karthus dying, of course, that's a little bit harsh. It's a lot of free gold for Genja, and that kind of, actually, you know, Genja got some. Actually, the first blood went to Gosu Pepper. But the really difficult thing here, though, is Alex will scale with gold much more than that top lane than Darien would. You know, the first game where Darien was stuck in a 1v2 had a very abysmal early game as Xin Zhao, or he was in the 1v1 and had a very rough early game as Olaf. They weren't relying on him for the composition. That wasn't really him. You know, he wasn't the linchpin of the strategy. Right. In this, when you've got an AP Evelynn, that is a linchpin. She needs to get that burst on. They don't have the safe damage output. Vayne is catchable. You know, Diamond being on Xin Zhao as a jungler means he's not going to get a lot of gold. He's not going to hyperscale. It's not the same as getting a soul in Xin Zhao. He doesn't have the option of buying Youmu's and a Bloodthirster or a Trinity Force or things like that and really scale himself up. He won't have that. He'll have Wriggles. He might have an Aegis. And that's going to be most of the items you're going to see. He'll kind of stop at Wriggles Aegis and try to go from there, but you're not going to see that build stretch much more. And you look at Darien. Darien's on Yorick. Yorick is not a hard carry. Yorick is there as, you know, a sort of half support, very brutal laner, but he's against Shen. He's not going to shut down Shen. Shen's got free sustain. He's got a shield. You know, that lane matchup is not great for M5 there either. It really is on Alex to join Genja on top of piles of gold. You know, Alex needs to become Scrooge McDuck and actually get those coins in his pockets because he does need to support and be another damage threat here. I don't think they can rely on just Genja here.
You know, Freakin', it may come into play here. Jat was talking about it within the last game of when they switch up the lanes, becomes very easy, and some people forget that other people are going to show up in the jungle that much sooner. So you'll see, you know, especially there's a Karthus on the map. A lot of people will forget that, and even when you're playing with them, they'll go in for a very hard fight in the tower dive and then forget Karthus is on the map. And those little things are going to give the other team increments to get ahead and ahead. And we'll have to see if this mid lane swap, we haven't really seen too much invading other than that level 1. Since those two are in mid, I think the buff control is kind of just going to be left to each team, and these dragon fights are going to be very big in the early game.
Dragon's going to be a huge deal for M5 because as soon as we get to the mid game where the lanes start hitting level 6, TPA has like the ultimate dive comp ever, where they're going to try to leave Karthus alone and let him sit in his lane and just farm up, and I think he's going to be reasonably safe. What they're going to look for is getting BB farmed, and as a side benefit, shutting down Alex Ish on Evelynn. That's really the goal here. The way a jungler really works, I was talking with Dan about the role of a jungler, and he was saying that a jungler is there to put your team ahead. It's there to push forward, kind of amplify a teammate. You don't gank as a jungler to shut someone down so much. I mean, of course, you remove them from lane, they get a little bit behind, but you gank to get someone ahead. You gank for a teammate, not against an opponent. That's really how you think about jungling, is it really is there to bolster your teammates. And the fortunate thing here is I think they really, really want to gank to bolster BB. He is the major carry here on Kog'Maw. He will be the most receptive to gaining gold because he needs to make sure that he has enough levels and items and whatnot to withstand Alex's burst and withstand Diamond's burst. If he can do those, he's good to go, smooth sailing. He can just solo Xin Zhao, withstand the burst from Evelynn, and just be fine, right? He's going to have a great time. The secondary benefit, though, is that lane right now, it actually will be a gank on Alex Ich on Evelynn. And yes, again, removing someone from a lane will, stop them getting a little bit of gold. It will stop them getting a little bit of experience. It will slow him down quite a bit. And those intersect very, very, very well. And the problem is, for M5 really, is Diamond will love to counter gank. And he will. He'll do a really good job of showing up and supporting Alex, supporting Ghost Pepper, trying to shut down BB. But here's the issue. TPA has Stanley on Shen, and they've got Toys on Karthus. So as long as they gank that mid lane, they send the jungler in, the support's already there, they're going to have 5 members participating every single time they go mid. The Global from Requiem, the Global Stand United from Shen, they're all going to be there. TPA can bring 5 people to a fight every 3 minutes, and they should. Every time those spells are up, they should go back to mid and crush Alex's hopes and dreams. If they can rinse and repeat that, they're going to have a really, really good time of this. What M5 has done is they've brought Ghost Pepper to the mid lane, they've sent Nunu as a support to Alex, which is a little bit harsh because now he's going to get less experience having to share that lane. But I don't think that Nunu's necessarily enough to keep that really happening. That I think really TPA has a lot of keys here in this early mid game. They can just push through, ignore the first blood. Toys is going to be okay. His flash is still up. He's going to scale throughout. He'll get that Rod of Ages, sustain in lane. If he's really stuck in a 1v1, it's not going to be that big of a deal. And I think he's going to survive this overall.
Freak, something we haven't brought to point as well is even if that late game starts to go in favor of Moscow 5, you have the double teleport, the Stand United and the Karthus teleport. So even if Requiem is coming from across the map, he's going to be in your face. We're now back into the game after everything is situated. 1-0 here. 4 minutes and 43 seconds on that, and I'm a liar. Call me a liar. This guy right here. So we are going to just take that a quick second. It looks like he liked it at first. There's a monitor and mouse that they're just kind of working out here. So once he gets that situated, we all know that stuff's not working right. You don't want to go any further. You want to get it situated. So as we were saying, that teleport strategy that could be used, it just adds to the versatility of the composition that they do have good initiation to start, Stand United, that Wall of Pain, and then the teleport in if Karthus has to Requiem from across the map to start. So that late game could be denied a little bit. Well, let's look at the matchup between the King and Queen of hyper late game carry, that Kog'Maw versus Vayne. Now, a Vayne can be very scary and can definitely outplay a Kog'Maw. Stun him against the wall, that fight's over. But Kog'Maw has the upper hand from the start.
Yeah, so the thing is here that Vayne really has the best dueling of the AD carries. She's got the condemn against the wall you just mentioned, the invisibility, the tumble, all the damage. She is absolutely the queen of AD carries, and it's great that she's a great duelist as well because she is right now dueling up against Karthus, and she'll be able to play that matchup correctly and completely dominate that one. Now Kog'Maw, I think he's got a bit of a better lane there. He's supported with the Taric, and that was actually a pick for the lane more so than just sort of the team comp. So that ended up working out as a shutdown. And yeah, he should have an easy time of this one, and he will, I think, in general, outscale unless unless assassins get too big. So Vayne can tumble and go invisible for a second and push someone back. That's her safety net. It's decent. It's there. She can kind of keep herself a bit safer. Kog'Maw does not have that. Kog'Maw just has range. But Diamond can reach that as Xin Zhao. Alex can reach that as Evelynn. So you've got a very weird mismatch here where there's no assassin there for Genja. Genja shouldn't be under much pressure. Yes, Karthus will be painful, but if he has the lifesteal and the positioning on Vayne to survive it, then Vayne is untouched and Vayne will continue to fight. It's really on Alex and Diamond. It's a different matchup here, right? Because Genja is going to be on himself. You know, can you dodge? Can you play well? Okay, Genja, then you're fine if you're good enough. But it's on Diamond and Alex for gold, really, right? Yeah. Do they get farmed enough? Do they get the damage? Can they shut down Cog? And if they can, there's not as many options here for BB. He can cleanse a slow, but that's about it.
All right, guys. So I'm pretty sure we asked you to ask us questions. LoL Worlds is the hashtag, and you guys did. So we're going to answer a few of those right now as the players get themselves situated and we get this underway. So as your social questions come in, we will be sure to get those answered. It's going to be Bobby Ray 25 on Twitter. He's saying, Freak and Riv, do you feel the metagame of each region will merge into a world meta?
Well, it's interesting because there's actually different approaches on each side. So Dan was talking about, you know, how a lot of the Asian teams play, where they'll prepare their own individual strategies and rehearse them and get them very prepared and kind of go for it. And the Asians in general seem to be very aggressive. They're a little bit M5-esque. And so what I was thinking, you know, as a point was that, you know, these guys don't. You know, these guys haven't played M5 almost ever. They rarely leave their region. M5's kind of an enigma, but they've got a lot of great teams to practice against. And you know, the only European teams that most of these Asian teams have seen is CLG EU, who plays so different from M5. But realistically, those Asian teams actually just play very similarly. It's aggressive. It's a lot of counter jungling. It's a lot of early movements and great team fight presence overall. Even in this tournament, though, we've got different strats. CLG EU is late game focused, and the only team that really does that, them and CLG NA, where they avoid team fights early on and then try to win at the 35-minute mark. Now, I think that you know, teams will keep their own strategies.
And guys, I believe we are now jumping back into the game. We do see the lane movement going around, so let's get the action back underway here. 5 minutes into the matchup. We are in that bit of a top lane here. It is 5,300 gold to 5,600 gold. You can see Stanley and Darian just kind of duking it out. Stanley preemptively shielding up to make sure he dodges that ghoul damage. Darian just pushing out his mana from that bar. Stanley will have a little bit better time in this lane, but like we said, Freak, that is not a fight lane. Those guys are not going to take each other down. Alex Ish being pressured very hard in mid here. As you see, Gosu is still forced to go around the map. He is still making sure his lanes are okay, and that's going to be bottom from Genja as well. Alex. Huge damage there. Nice dazzle. BB taking a turret shot. This is the pressure here. This is the stranglehold suffocation that Taipai Assassins wants to throw on. Nunu can't always stay middle. He still wants to support Vayne. That's going to become a tough lane. Genja's not too hurt right now, and he's actually farming just as well. As we see Toys, the flash, the initiation, the dazzle goes down, but he flashes out perfectly. Diamond coming in to deter this attack, and they also waste the Summoner Exhaust there. One attack from Alex. You can see him always doing the little bit amount of damage, getting the upper hand as much as they can.
And that was really, really good. Diamond knew that was a prime counter. It was a prime gank attempt right there. Was waiting in the wings, immediately jumped on, put on the crowd control, and a great move. 2 flashes used to try to jump on Alex. Alex, the 1 flash of himself, got himself out. Really, really good plays. But I want to talk about this top lane a little bit. Stanley's making some cool moves. Whenever a ghoul chases after him, if he can do it, he actually runs into the brush and forces the ghoul to stop and actually hit minions instead. So you'll see when the lane is actually more neutral right here, Stanley will jump to the brush to kind of deter those kind of moves, and it allows him to push back to his turret. That's a really good move to do against Yorick to keep that lane kind of in your favor. But you're seeing that matchup still much better for Shen. He's winning in minions, and he'll continue to do well. And now being the first to level 6 as well means he can really support these gank attempts and really just snowball his side lanes ahead. You won't see Karthus get tower dive nearly as easily again.
So not usually seeing the Dorans on a jungler. Xin going for that first. Diamond feels like he just wants lane presence to get out here and wants to be a little bit more tanky. You can see him going down towards bottom lane or into the blue brush. He doesn't see that Karthus is there. Are going to get some invasion here into the jungle. Just a ward from Diamond. That was his only one. He was backing previously, so we may see him go back to buy. Gosu joining again with even mid. That Blood Boil on. Not going to assist too powerfully much, but obviously help her get out of some sticky situations, especially with Dazzle. And you can see it, Little Ball's doing the exact same thing, pretty much just mirroring what we saw Diamond Prox do, heading around, warding the jungle, making sure every one of the bushes is clear, and we can see they're getting quite aggressive here. The roam comes in from the jungler and support. This is the benefit of having those guys in mid, but like I said, there will be others there. Little Balls may have forgot that right away, and here comes the Stand United into the fight. This means that Stanley, or rather, that's going to be Darian, now having quite a fun top lane freak. But, as I said before, they weren't controlling objectives. They go and take it.
And that was a really orchestrated move. We talked in the pregame about M5 having team-based counter jungling. Well, they actually sent Karthus all the way from bottom lane to walk over, saying, we're going to steal the blue. We have the numbers advantage. We know we will outfight an underfarmed Evelynn. We know we will outfight them. We've got Stand United. They simply walked over, and M5 knew it. M5 knew they had complete control, did not even contest anything. Now, they had waited in the brush. They knew they couldn't win the fight, but they knew they could at least burn Stand United. And so they burned one of those summoners, but one of those very long cooldown ultimates. It's a very, very big move there.
So we're seeing great defense from Moscow 5, Ben Q in mid. Usually you see the AD carry support switch coming in to really drop a lane as soon as possible and push that person around for the roam. But they've really swapped the lanes just back to normal. That kill going to Genja. They're saying, Vayne, could we start to get a little strong? We see Gosu coming in. They go for a mistake, however. The Dazzle goes out into Zin. The 3 talent has not popped him up yet. The crowd control is great, but there is the teleport as well. Stand United is not going to come in this fight, so they are faced with the amount of champions from TPA they have here, and they're still forced to back up. Very low mana and health coming into that fight, and a scene, Little Balls right here, seeing LHH as he's forced to run in the bush. That ward gives him a bit of vision, and there's the speed buff steroid coming in for Alex to get out safely. TPA now grabs their own blue buff, but Alex sits on the wing to try and take this one away. Pressure coming in as well from Diamond. They do have that ward. They do not get the steal on it. Goes to Little Balls.
And that bottom lane fight really should have gone in M5's favor. There's two rules really of fighting in general. Number one is if you're on a 2-on-2, you always attack the AD carry, because if you don't attack him, he'll attack you back and he'll win that fight. And that was the rule that Genja was following. You saw him jump up and try to focus down BB's Kog'Maw. The problem was that wasn't a 2-on-2, it was a 3-on-2. It was a free kill completely, and the team focused on the mistake. They exhausted the mistake. They stunned mistake. And Genja went for the entire other champion. If he landed 3 attacks on a mistake, that would have been a kill on the Terror Core, at the very least forcing his flash out. But that's not what they did. They completely did not go for him. And they would have been 300 gold for Genja without a doubt if he went for the right target.
So we see 10 minutes coming into the game. The pressure not so much causing falters, but a little bit of miscommunication there. We did see 10,900 gold to 10,400. Very, very close in the economy situation. And it is 1 kill in favor of Moscow 5. We saw them grab that. It did go over to Gosu, rather, in middle, but we got 2 assists on it. That's going to be going to Diamond as well as Genja. So 2 good people to get that money early in the game. And we can see Genja quickly not just going for straight damage, but trying to really scale that W up with the Zeal right off the bat.
And that's really how you kind of play as Vayne, is you've got a lot of base damage because of Silver Bolts and Tumble and all that. And so what you're really trying to go for is just speed. It's getting into fights, engaging and disengaging. She's a little bit short range because she doesn't have those long range poke tools like Kog'Maw does. And so she's going to kind of keep setting herself up and get into and out of fights as fast as possible.
Ward clearing going on now, coming from Little Balls, double buff on that Udyr. The lane is pushed up quite a bit, but they know that ward was just taken out. He shows himself bottom. This is going to give some help. This is a perfect chance to counter. Now that he is gone, he's going to walk away quite a bit. We see him coming back here. Diamond's going to know that procced him to just stay. Little Balls is still very much so interested in this fight. Diamond has backed, so still Moscow 5 must be careful. Great job, Gosu Pepper using the mentality to act as just a live ward in the bush to keep Genja safe.
And right now you're seeing the sort of matchup for TPA is that I think they're happy to kind of scale throughout this game. And I think they want to keep putting pressure on Alex and get a lot of gold up there and keep him from farming. I think this is the one time you would actually gank to shut someone down, because they don't want to give Alex Evelynn those roam opportunities, because he's at the level now, being level 8 really, where he can actually shove minion waves out. You just saw him do that now, and he's going to roam around the map and look for an opportunity. If they can keep Alex down and burn his spells, he can't do that.
And we see quite low health going into a fight. They initiate down bottom. A beautiful job there. They called in the Stand United for the fight. Diamond Prox coming in very big. He charges in to get the kill. Alex Ish coming up with that one onto Kog'Maw. BB trying to blast out the true damage. And we are going to find mistake on the chase. Stanley is quite hurt as well. Darian coming down to assist the fight. This is going to be huge for Moscow 5 if they can continue to micro themselves out of the damage. Little Balls is left by himself. His voice flashes away. The triple kill for Moscow 5. Darian coming up huge. 4 altogether.
believe that. That roam coming through, and of course, it is complete control for Dragon. They could even go to mid if they wanted to pick up another turret, but I think they're going to recall back instead. They know if they're low on health, they could get counter-pushed instead, so you're going to see Darien come back, walk to that top lane. You're going to see Genja just kind of get his health back up, life-stealing that whole bottom lane. But what a good opening there. The move down from Darien to show up to that fight in time. The Ghouls putting out so much damage. That was amazing. You see that TPA lineup really trying to use their ultimates for the engage to make that happen. Let's watch a replay and see just what those moves were. Darien, really the MVP in that fight.
Пока что. Дарьян, давай, пизди. Хорош, хорош, Дарьян.
Удира лучше. Удира. Будет за медлом, будет. Давай, хорош. Дракона.
Хорош,
Барашка.
There you have it. Such a strong fight coming from Moscow 5, and they really controlled it from the beginning. It was an amazing thought by Taipai Assassins. The initiation from everywhere but the lane itself. The Requiem comes in. The Stand United comes on. And the only real initiation you see from bottom lane is a few steps forward so Shen can get that taunt off. Everything worked perfectly, but kudos to Moscow 5's bottom lane for getting out just an inch in time.
And that's really, there's two things to point out there as well. Is the one is you look at how well sort of coordinated M5 BenQ is. The only one even talking in that fight is Alex Ish. Everyone else knows their jobs exactly. No one else to talk. No one has to say anything because they all know each other so well. That roster is so stable that it's clear, it's concise, and it's just Alex saying, here's where we're going. Okay, Darien, cast this. Guys, go in here. And he's just the mastermind making all those calls. And that's the first team I've really seen play like that. Well, you know, a lot of them will just yell for every kill. If you listen to like CLG, actually if you listen to Curse's sort of in-game chat, you can't hear anything. I've tried.
A little aggression here on Genja, and he gets stunned up twice. A very nice job from Dazzle into Bear. And he gets pushed out of lane here. This is going to be big. Taipai needs to get some ground in these lanes.
And this is the difficulty, though, is they just try their major engage using all their main cooldowns. So they're coming back the next 30 seconds, that's a big deal. But if you saw how CLG EU did it, is they actually counter-engaged with Requiem. They actually let the fights come to them and then turn them around. Now, I think TPA should put the aggression on. I think they have the team for it. But that's really the difference here, is that if you're kind of going in with those spells, it's much harder to turn those fights around.
See the blue buff going out. Alex Ish grabs it away. Doesn't even have smite. 15 minutes in the game. Gosu Pepper goes down for this. So kind of a back and forth there. You did lose a champion. It's going to be a kill coming up, I believe, for Bebe there. So, or BB rather. So he's going to be getting himself some gold. Both the AD carries kind of building up the same way as Kog'Maw. That cheaper build as well, coming in with the Zeal, able to use that W Bio-Arcane Barrage percentage health damage that you're always going to be doing. However, that only comes up every so often, so you'll see him trying to get himself within range of the fight. Coming up from the backside, here's the assassination. Up until mid-game, Alex Ish doesn't want to fight, but there you can see just how aggressive he is once he gets the chance.
Once again, it's going to be how he plays that matchup. He is an assassin against a mage with not a lot of defensive escape tools. It's going to be kind of over and over that kind of story. And now next time, Stand United will not be back up. Alex Ish on Evelyn only has 45 seconds to go until that ult is back up. Meanwhile, it's more like 2.5 minutes here for Stanley on Shen. And that is a mismatch that M5 is going to need to do. You heard Jat during the WCLG match where he was saying that you know, they've got to put those windows in between Karthus ults.
The teleport coming in, Toys now coming out as well. And here the Wall of Pain takes down Gosu. The Wall of Pain is down. Genja's going to be able to run out, and he just continues to lose his support. Obviously, he's happy to not go down, but that is going to continuously feed that bottom lane.
That's exactly fine. And every single time, you know, it's a 3-on-2. You don't need to focus the carry. Do not get caught up in the fact that kills are for shutdowns. Kills are for golds. In a team fight, kills are for shutdowns. You don't want them fighting you. But as far as ganks are concerned, ganks are there to just give yourself and your teammates 300 gold and split that 58% assist gold with everyone else who's in that fight. That's what it's for. It's there to get Toys farmed because he knows that mid lane, it's risky. Alex has his ult back up. Now, he's got no ignite, but he's going to have enough damage here, Sorcerer's Shoes, and a lot of extra ability power to keep putting that pressure and really make life super, super miserable here for Toys.
Freak, I think this is one of the times like we've seen either of these teams not start dictating fights before towers have gone down. They're staying in their lanes. There's been only ganks. Usually we see a huge tower dive coming in. Genja face checking the bushes. They go in without any vision, and it's going to be huge. The Requiem comes down onto Genja. They give Mistake against the wall, but he's forced to dash away. Beautiful job knowing he could do the damage there as he dazzled Mistakes, or he rather condemned Mistakes so he could not dazzle, and got some extra damage. And these guys really playing the mechanics to the top of their limit. 8 kills into this game. It's 5-3 in favor of M5 BenQ as they continue their aggression. There's really no snowball to either team. About of a 3K gold lead here. Genja once again stunned up. They can't get inside for Bear Stance. His flash was up, and that could have been a considerable kill for them.
That was really risky overall. You just see Genja kind of playing this matchup by the skin of his teeth right there, using Summoner Heal to bait out the flash from BB. And as soon as he came in there, he was like, Summoner Heal, fight me. And BB was like, no, we're good, thanks. And just simply backed off from that one. But that's kind of the gameplay you're going to see from M5. They're going to fight these very sort of neck-and-neck, tooth-and-nail battles that are just extremely close overall. And the way they're going to really tip is if Alex gets to finally roam. He's not been able to run into these matchups very much. He's been fighting his lane opponent, stalking Toys here in the jungle. This could be good for him.
Toys not really catching him there. Huge damage coming out from Alex Ish. Will he flash over for the kill? And it looks like he may be able to get Landmass Q out. He lands it, makes it out alive.
Alex playing that one right. Again, he's got the Deathfire Grasp picked up there. It's exactly what he wanted to do, was simply turn those around and just assassinate Toys. And you look at Toys' build, he's got those flat magic resist, he's got the Rod of Ages, but he needs more. He needs some actual magic resist. Normally you see Rabbidan's Death Cap come out next, but right now he needs a Negatron Cloak. He needs to not get one-shotted by Alex in lane, because that will keep happening every time.
Oh, BB not looking so good right here, but the Condemn just going off a little bit, and it pushes him towards his turret. That's not really going to be an initiation here for TPA. Good damage coming out, however, from BB. He did get that BF sword. He knew he needed damage versus the Silver Bolts of Vayne. That right into Phantom Dancer was not going to work for them, although would help to shred those tanky champions coming in. And there it is, the initiation onto Genja, the Ice Blast to BB so he can't attack, just back and forth. Great job down bottom, but TPA continuing the aggression as well, so great job from them.
And there is a lot of poke potential there. Anytime Dazzle lands, BB is guaranteed to land that the arcane, the ultimate there, the living artillery as it's called, to get some free harass down. Last time I thought he would have landed that for a couple hundred damage right there. There's not a lot of sustain overall on Genja. You see, two sort of builds there from Vayne. One of the main ones is rushing Bloodthirster, and that lifesteal would really keep Genja alive. But as you're seeing here, as he fights the Lizard buff, there's not a lot of lifesteal for him. He's just got those 2 Dorn's Blades, so that poke will stick around quite a bit onto Vayne. They should keep that pressure going.
A few of the turrets now pretty hurt for Moscow 5, meaning those prep turrets could really mean a lot after an objective fight here if it can be forced by Taipai Assassins in the right formation. They will be able to push that mid turret. Don't know how hurt that top turret is. It's actually still got some health. We can see Darian doing very well in his lane. Now Genja and Gosu Pepper trying to defend theirs as well. It is not too hurt, so they have a good lane going down bottom. A lane that can both get Genja farmed as well as keep Gosu somewhat alive. He's gone down quite a bit for his team this game. The only one to have the 3 kills on that board, and that's the person they want dying if somebody's going to go down. So they've done it in the correct fashion if it were to happen.
Mistake just waiting around trying to find Gosu Pepper out. The ultimates are at both Requiem and Stand United. TPA is going to look for another fight as Evelyn comes from the back. Expect all ults to be burned. TPA, they could be okay. Actually, Lowball's waiting around. If they go in, he's going to be in good shape.
Yeah, that teleport's just coming up for TPA Toys. Here we go, onto BB. So much damage. He tries to cleanse. He looks like he's going to make it out of this one. Just on the outside of Gosu's Absolute Zero. They do a ton of damage. TPA cannot stay in the fight with the amount coming out from Genja. He is just able to focus whoever he wants from the backside. And you can see Diamond creating such a frontline presence.
Wow, so much damage was available there. I can't believe that turned as easily as it did. With Stanley there, Lowball's there, everyone there to tank, it just did not matter. They just completely burned through Tarek's health bar, no matter what. Happy to kill support, happy to bring everyone's health bar down and simply make the fight happen. Darian did not have to be involved whatsoever, and they still won that in a 4v4.
Slowing down Toys. No, they do not choose to initiate. There's too much turret damage to be had. They played that one smart. Toys as well, trying to keep himself safe here with little balls. They're going to have to watch this turret go down. The first turret of the game, 22 minutes in. I think that may be the longest time it's taken for our turrets to fall. Moscow 5 BenQ and Taipai Assassins playing a very cautious semifinal matchup.
yeah, they really do not want to overextend, because if someone does move in a little bit too far, there is so much chase potential on both sides. I mean, you look at the M5 lineup. If someone overextends, they've got Vayne with Blood Boil, who will chase that guy to the ends of the earth. You've got so much flow coming out from Nunu and from York together that no one's going to get away if they overextend. Meanwhile, the same thing is there for TPA. Shen, Tarek, Udyr, that person is going to get completely locked upon, just locked down really, and then everyone else is going to fire upon him, and Karthus and Kog'Maw will have a lot of damage on the front line. Both these teams are about just enough disruption, about having just enough disruption that the back line can just shred people down. So you're seeing more ganks than turret pushes, because turret pushes can be countered with ganks. They kind of got, they have more of those questions answered and can kind of push through a little bit more safely.
So, Freak, let's take a look at these builds. We do see that Stanley is going for possible late-game Frozen Mallet, but switched over to go for that Wit's End to stop the damage coming in from Eve. Usually you'll see that tanky top laner take the role of, well, as I just said, the tank, but we look over to Darian's side. He's gone for Triforce. Nobody on their team is really building to be that single tank. Is their amount of power really allowing them? But Alex, he's coming in huge right here on the top turret. It has been prepped to be taken down, but his focus is only Stanley coming up with the kill and able to make it out. 8-3. Alex again providing for himself.
And just over and over, he's got a safe lane, just turns it around to gold.
Here comes the Absolute Zero. Big damage on Mistake. It procs. Another shot could come in. He might lead this one to Diamond. Mistake is not the focus anymore. Little Balls gets taken down as he tries to come in. Darian picking that one up. And again, they'll get another one. It's going to be Mistake as well. Here comes Toys. Toys could get dropped. The heal coming out. If he can turn and fire, they may be able to stop it, but there's no mana. It's only going to be Toys having his way with bottom lane now. The 4 for 1. Alex stays alive.
He's just having a field day here, constantly pushing through on this map. They're making a lot of difficulties here. Alex is not getting shut down. He rushed that Deathfire Grasp. He used it to great effect, picking up kills on Toys, I think twice in a row now, just kind of soloing him out in that lane and making a lot of pressure happen overall, and he's been able to roam. He's been able to show up to those fights. The kills at bottom lane where they picked up Mistake and put some pressure on the turret right after. The pressure up that top lane, just diving Stanley, pretty tanky Shen under his turret, and it's interesting because that's like the one downside you would expect to see from Shen going double gold per 10 is he would have a bit of a weak mid game as he waits for that gold to kick in, and just would you know it, Alex shows up and capitalizes on that disadvantage. We're seeing a complete repeat of his first Evelyn game, I should say, and just picking up kill after kill on the opposition.
And a huge item coming out from Darian here. Actually just picked up his Guardian Angel. Always focusing his ult onto somebody else now. Doesn't even have to worry about himself. Is really taking that top lane. 209 minion kills to 137. And as I said before, Freak, he's had such a good lane, he's not even needing to build the HP for that lane. You can see, as we were saying and poking at before, Shen having to go for Wit's End for the magic mitigation, as well as that phase to build into the Frozen Mallet later for that health. What's the advantage of just having Darian not have to do that? It's always damage coming from that lane.
It's interesting because I guess, because he got this early kill, he's able to push forward. Rushing that Trinity Force allowed him to really be a huge menace overall in battles. It let him out-duel Stanley, pretty much. It let him to kind of stop counter pushes.
See the wall of pain going down, and you can see the confidence coming from Moscow 5. They are waltzing through this fight right now. Taipai Assassins with Darian on the outside. 4v1 right now. Darian taking all the hits. The Guardian Angel not even popped. We see Alex Dace going into the middle of the fight. Mistake could go down here. He will fall to Genja. We see coming up huge. Phoebe onto Alex. That area of effect damage not going to be coming out for them anymore, and they are forced out of this fight. TPA using the turret to their advantage here. A good kill coming out from Darian as he takes down Little Balls, but the chase is on. BB does have that blue buff. He just decides to turn, though, as both teams just go in an all-out fight regardless of the area around them or the situation of the turret.
This is one thing that M5 is best at overall, is they are so supremely good at getting into fights just long enough. If you actually just sat there watching Darian the entire time, and it's like, yes, I'm in the front line, fight me, I'm Guardian Angel Yorick, fight me, I dare you, keep, go for it. Pop the Guardian Angel, don't mind if I do, fight me, do all the damage, haha, we killed your carries, and then got low enough and just walked right out. His Guardian Angel is going to recharge over time. That cooldown's going to come back up. I think he might, and he had the self-control to say, yes, I will happily lose my Guardian Angel. You will tunnel vision me, and you will kill the very tanky Yorick. Next fight, I won't be quite as reckless. I'll get down to 10%, and I'll walk out. I'll ult someone, I'll walk out. It won't be a big deal. No big worries here from Darien. He's going to have that kind of gameplay where he's going to be very comfortable in his own skin, knows that there's no surprises really in store, right? No one's going to pick him out of nowhere. He knows the kind of damage BB's putting out. He knows how much damage Kog'Maw can deal. He knows what Toys can deal. He knows, yeah, okay, you've got Requiem, that's nice, but then no one else is going to chase him out. So he can walk out of those fights so securely and just tank damage. And because he has Trinity Force, because he has those duels, he will actually be a pretty reasonable damage threat. By picking up that Triforce, it gives him just enough presence to say, yes, here's the damage output that you actually care about. If I go for a squishy, he'll actually take damage. You must actually deal with me, even though you don't want to. Even though I'm Guardian Angel York, you must deal with me. You must focus me and push me out.
Yeah, Freak, that's something actually we talked about with Dan Din earlier and how Moscow 5 BenQ approaches fights. They leave a few that can take the area of effect cooldowns away, causing the other team to only have pinpoint focus attacks. That's when they go in. They leave a few people to take away some area of effect, another few, they go into the fight. We saw that happen. You just explained. Darien, I'll take all the damage. Alex Ish flashed right into the fight. Both of those were wasting so many cooldowns while staying alive and able to trade back. This has brought them now 13-6. They have an over 10,000 gold lead just about, and it's going to be 28 minutes into the matchup. This spells Baron.
And Five's going to make a good move for this. I think they're more trying to bait a battle out here. They were trying to sneak it because they only sent 3 members there. They wanted to try to put some damage in. They had ward coverage. They did get back out pretty safely. But Alex on the flank.
Alex is coming in from behind. This is what we said he would do. He goes away from Toys. You can see him just blowing all the cooldowns. They've separated from the fight. Genja as well, or Vivi rather. Vivi trying to come in with that passive. The Requiem goes down, and it's not going to be enough damage. Genja more than happy to stay in the fight. Fires down on Little Balls. Mistake is in his eyes next. Gets the double kill, the triple kill. No, Alex is picking up Shen, and they're going to have an open turret for that first inhibitor in mid, but it looks like they're making a straight beeline for Baron.
That is the right play. Once again, they had simply separated the champions perfectly. You saw Diamond kind of go in and out against Toys and Karthus, and it simply kind of required him to stand there out of range of anyone else. It was just perfect positioning. It's a free push onto Baron, of course, with no one else alive. They don't need to wait around for Darien to revive. It's not that big of a deal. They'll simply pick up the buff, pick up the golden experience, lock themselves back out very safely. They've got time to recall. Not a big deal. His replay is coming out. Let's see exactly what went down. Now watch Diamond. He comes in, knocks up Toys, walks back out. Toys cannot do anything in this fight. He's simply unable to deal much damage. Finally just shut down. Still not in range of anyone. Now watch Darien at the bottom. Genja. Genja's got no one to focus him. Easy kill on Little Balls. No one there to touch Vayne. Walks up. Mistake. Not a problem. Stanley, the last one alive on Shen. They focus the targets. And they focus the carries properly. BB went down first. Toys went down second, Little Balls went down third, and then Mistaken Stanley the Tanks went down last. They had exact perfect target prioritization. Alex flanked around the back, bursted Toys, prevented Toys from getting himself in the middle of the fray. And Genja, playing his champion right, said, yes, if I'm stuck near a Karthus, it will suck, so I won't be anywhere near Karthus, thank you very much. We'll kill BB, I'll come from around the side. You guys do with Karthus, I'll kill things on the other side of the map.
Team Guardian Angel now coming into play for M5 BenQ. They are starting to sport those around. It looks like Diamond is trying to get his up there quite soon as well. He does have the chain vest. They have pushed TPA back into their base. Moscow 5 now controls the team fights within this game. Genja, Gosu, Pepper, and Diamond still holding that Baron buff. Very strong in their own rights. With Darien on the front side, the Guardian Angel just about to come back up for him in about 5 seconds. This is why he's pushing the turret so hard. If it comes back in this fight, it's going to be huge. There's so much focus on him, and they're not going to see it come back up. BB going down, has to cleanse out of this one. Toys is just standing there doing so much damage. It doesn't look like the focus is that right for Moscow 5, but they're avoiding all the damage that they need to. An ace coming out for them, a triple kill coming out for Genja. And it looks like they may be able to push on to the Nexus turrets in this one. They have a lot of tank behind their champions. Diamond and Gosu on the front. The first Nexus turret goes down 23-7, 31 minutes into the game. That's all Moscow 5 needed for game 1 as they take it from TPA.
Wow, what a perfect play right there. That was amazing. M5 BenQ, the assassin composition did what it was supposed to do. It exactly did what they wanted. And this, you know, it worked out better than I thought it would. And in retrospect, of course it makes sense. You look at what Diamond did on Xin Zhao. Now, this was a champion with this comp that was on Darien before. And Darien, when he was top lane of Xin Zhao, had a bad start, went Sunfire Cape, tried to be a tank and just sort of survive for the team.
Right.
And Alex had the gold. Alex, he had the Deathfire Grasp. He put all the damage down. He was there to shut down Kog'Maw. Well, you had the same kind of situation, really, where you had, a decent game from Diamond, 2-0 and 15. He got some gold, not super farmed. But again, if you have tank Xin Zhao and he did enough damage, low gold Xin Zhao really has the same damage because you didn't buy damage items the first time. So he actually performed the exact same role. Jumped in there, pressed Crescent Sweep, got some armor and MR for pressing that button, dealing a lot of damage, and just went through and tried to focus down on Kog. And Alex, again, a similarly rough start to his early game, got a lot of damage taken to him, very, very rough start, but still pick up Deathfire Grasp, still dominant through the mid game, still a stellar performance, going 5-1 and 10, performed the exact same role. I made sure I watched Kog'Maw in that last fight, and BB, he didn't make any mistakes. He was in the back line. He hit who he could, but the front line of
jumped
Guardian
super hard.
Yorick, like Diamond super farmed, in the end, or at least super tanky.
Yeah.
Gosu Pepper on Nunu. Like, what's he going to focus? There's nothing there to even attack. Even a Guardian Angel was there on Evelynn. Like, there's nothing for him to kill. He swung as much as he could. Nothing took enough damage. Burst from Evelynn, burst from Xin Zhao, ran backwards, took another set of damage to the face. You actually saw Yorick flash into him to land more abilities, and then he dropped.
Yeah.
And there's nothing there for him to survive. Now you could say that Stanley could have used Stand United at some point there on Shen. That would have given him a couple more seconds to survive. But by that point, everyone else was already still dead. That front line was tanky enough. It was brutal. Let's watch that last fight. And actually, this time, I'm going to watch Genja and see what he did to keep himself alive. As we come in here, just watch him. On the backside, there's the invisibility jumping in. Look at that focus. Forces Stanley away. Drops him down. Still on the outside. Focuses low balls. No big deal. Kills him. Toys still outside of the file range. Completely immune to counterattacks. Genja not once was even attacked in that battle. His front line was voracious, just shoved themselves in there, and he said, yep, I'll kill a tank, yep, I'll kill a tank, just kept going through on individual targets, and there was nothing there to dive him, because there were the assassins in front causing way too much havoc. And that kind of goes to prove the best defense is a good offense, because when Xin Zhao is diving your face, you're not worried about Vayne anymore, you're worried about not dying. And you will die anyway, because holy cow, will an ulted Vayne crush your team.
Freak, it really comes back to the window that Moscow 5 was able to play with late game. They just have to fight without Stand United up, without Teleport up, and without Requiem up. Or vice versa, 2 out of 3, 1 out of the 3. The pressure they continue to have, like I said, Alex Ish going to come in. He is going to be the hard initiation. Deathfire Grass, explode your face, and you have no idea what happened. You're just left clicking buttons to try and do something in Death Defy form. That was pretty much the game coming from Karthus. So they just came in so strong every time and understood those windows, understood they weren't going to get a teleport or a Stand United. And we even saw in that last fight, there wasn't even enough time for Stanley to Stand United because he still has it up.
Yeah, he was killed right away. And M5, I think, they're the first team I've seen actually play around Stand United and play around Requiem perfectly.
Right.
I never saw a single instance of them getting into a fight and being like, oh, right, Karthus pressed R. Double kill. Never once. Never once. They knew it was there every single time. I never, ever saw them get caught out. When you looked at CLG versus WE, they would get into those fights, a guy would run back and it was like, oh, right, of course, and then 200 damage and the guy dies. And you've seen that with Shen as well, where they will dive onto a turret and get that shield and be like, oh, crud, I forgot that shield's there. I mean, you saw Alex East try to dive Karthus around level 6 or 7, and Stand United came and he was like, great, Stand United, I'm going to walk out, I'm not going to overcommit, no big deal, and happily just wasted that cooldown. Again, those Requiems never turning around for kills. And I can't stress this enough, M5 played around globals so well, they were never caught out by them. They never overextended and forgot that they existed. And it forced TPA to actually use them offensively. It forced them to say, hey guys, team fight starting, Requiem. And M5 was like, okay, so Requiem's being used. Great, okay, 200 damage, thank you very much. We'll continue on now, thank you, because our health pools are still here. And then there were no surprises left. M5 never got caught out by those globals. I mean, they really seem like the most well-rehearsed team here. I liked everything they did in that game.
Guys, don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back after this with a do-or-die semifinal game 2 between Moscow 5 Ben Q and Taipei Assassins. We'll be right back.